The first thing I want to, well, hello, good morning. And then the next thing is on the calendar invite to this Texas Power Up. At the very bottom where it says PS, there is a Dropbox, not Dropbox, I guess a Google Drive of all the stuff Kimberly shared with us last week. That's where you can find it. And then also, like, if you're like, ah, man, I missed the Power Up, how do I find it again? I included the playlist in there as well for you. So we are good to go. Let's start off this morning. Does anybody have any wins, any brevity wins, any like business wins, any gratitude, any shout outs for teammates that we should all know about? We should all know about. Take a second.
I'm going to go ahead and shout out my team.
Yes, please
cool.
do.
My partners, Jesus and Michael. Obviously, I do travel a lot, and I can do that with confidence, knowing that they're holding down the fort. I think I was gone like 11 days in February, and now I'm going to be gone 10 days in a row. I'm going to 8 weddings this year, you guys. So they are holding down the fort, including Michael's. He's getting married on Sunday. Yeah, just really grateful for both of them. Teamwork.
What an incredible team. Michael and was it Jesus? Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to keep track of all the teams on here. Team within teams.
And really everyone, like KCRTC, like I'm just like, Casey, can you please do this? And Michaela for helping Michael, literally everybody.
Everybody. And Michael, man, congrats on the upcoming big day. Quite a lot happening in your life over there. That's amazing. I love it. That's awesome. Casey, I saw your hand next.
Yes, so I'd like to shout out some of our folks here in Austin. We had Inventory Creation Day yesterday, leaned in, set some goals. Very excited to see Alyssa with 33 contacts in one day. That was pretty great. Fatima had 5 nurtures she added to her database yesterday, which was great. And then Joseph, Jose, and John Hand all set 2 appointments each. So that was pretty cool. Love to see that in one day.
Well, man, I was talking to Brandon last night about this, and I thought we were both saying, gosh, like, what if we did that weekly? Like, that would be like game changing. That is really, really awesome. Congrats, guys. Inventory Creation Day is a big day, and I love that we make a big deal out of it. Thanks, Casey, for leading that, and thanks for everybody. It's just like leaning into it. Michaela, good morning.
Hey, good morning. I want to shout out our team for Inventory Creation Day as well. We had a good chunk of agents show up and just like get their heads down and get going. Even some of our newer agents making over 100 dials in just the morning. It's amazing. And even some pre-launch individuals kind of just taking advantage of having all the support that they can in the office. And then just final shout out for Allie Volmer. She led our day yesterday. So just, love seeing the leadership and her kind of take charge of that and help out our team.
Wow, that's awesome. Go, Allie. I love that. Allie has also had a lot of life happening this year and lots of good stuff. So that's cool to see her step it up. That's very nice. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning. I do want to shout out Allie for kind of like only leaders. She shows up peppy and ready to go, motivating a lot of us and just being a great teammate in the office and someone we can vent to and cry to and be there for each other during this market and during life's transitions, but still motivating one another and keeping us in the game.
I love that. That's really special that you would say that, Jen. Thank you for that. And Allie, that's awesome. Thanks so much for being that for your team over there, because it allows all of us to show up that way. I love that. I want to give a shout out to Valencia. She just completed our Converted series in May. I know a lot of you guys were on it. It was great. The fact that you would take 5 Tuesdays out of your schedule for place directly is just super special and so meaningful to us and to our businesses. You're a great friend and you're an even better businesswoman than I even thought. And I really, really, really love and appreciate you for that. So thank you, Valencia. And I want to give, I think there's a couple shout outs. Who has bought or contracted on a house for their personal selves this year? I got some hands up. I see Miss Michaela. I see Elvira. Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? Anybody else? Ooh, I don't see everybody's hands. So anybody? Jen Smith. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? I am hearing Caitlin Wells. That kind of came up the pike. I'm hearing maybe Jose. That kind of came up the pike. So it's only the beginning of June. So start thinking about like, hey, like this year, what property could I buy? It might not be in your city. It might be in a city that price ranges are, lower than where we are. But think about like, a decade from now, you will blink, 10 years will pass. I know it's hard if you're in your 20s, especially, it's hard to even imagine 10 years passing, but I'm telling you, I'm 35, you do blink and you're all of a sudden no longer in your 20s, guys. And so if you buy one property a year, you walk away with 10 properties at the end of 10 years, you can retire on that, just FYI. So we'd love for you to be around selling real estate until like you're 72. But I don't want you to have to do that. I want you to be doing that because that's your choice. So on that topic, let's start talking about what we're talking about today. Is that okay with everybody? Yes, yes, and yes. Okay, perfect. So today we're talking about like voice to voice, face to face, networking, past clients, repeat referral business. And I know the second I put that out there, if any of you read like the context of the conversation today, you guys are probably like either super stoked because this is so up your alley, or you were like, oh, really? Because networking, like that's something people put on their business plan, but it's not really a business plan. Like I know, I've been around 17 years now. I know what that looks like. Today I'm excited because we have somebody from Charlotte this morning. Her name is Christina Brown that I want to introduce you guys to. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight her so that we can get started with, oh girl, you look good this morning. Christina Brown, tell us a little bit. Okay, just start us off. I'll tell you guys, her business last year looked like 43 units closed. That's a lot of us would love to sell 43 units, right? So 43 units closed. 85% of her business was repeat and referral. Now, how many of you would like to sell 43 units and 85% be repeat referral, right? Like all of us. Well, first of all, who would like to even have like 85% repeat referral business? Like that's a beautiful business, right? So she is a sales director with Jay White's group out in Charlotte. So, okay, so let's start. What's your background? Kind of give us the feel of how you got to be Christina, and then we'll jump into topics.
Well, thanks for having me, Adelina. So I got to be Christina because, so let's start at the beginning. My dad was self-employed. My dad owns a contracting company. And so I always kind of grew up in that industry where your reputation matters. And if you sign your name to something, it needs to be worthwhile. And so I grew up in that environment. I became a high school English teacher. I did that for 10 years. At the time, I also had 2 children. I found I was either a really great teacher or a really great mama, but rarely both at the same time. And so I took a break from that and I went into our church where I rebuilt a preschool daycare program and got that up and running. And I'm kind of a fixer personality. Like I walk into things and I see what's wrong and I fix it. And then whenever it gets to be normal or status quo, I'm done. And so I knew it was time for me to move back into something else. You go back to what's familiar. So I went back to teaching, and that's when the hive started. Like every Sunday night, it was terrible. I guess sometimes when things aren't a perfect fit. Your body even tells you that, right? So my husband and I knew that we wanted to do real estate. We knew that that was going to be our retirement plan. His parents retired in their 50s with real estate and have lived on their rental income since then. My dad owns about 30 properties that he rents out as well. And he loves work, so he's still working in his 70s. But we knew real estate was going to be the end game. So we just fast forwarded that. I've been in business for 7 years. I started with Jay directly. And honestly, real estate has been the best fit for our family. It has been such a great thing. And if I can share what I've done with the agents on our team and we can continue to grow together, I just can't think of a better win.
I love that. So what kind of income were you trying to replace originally? Like what'd you walk into this wanting to do originally, and what has it kind of morphed into now?
So I'm not a risk taker at all. Like I'm very cautious. I'm the firstborn, like all the things that entails. And so when I went into real estate, my goal was to replace my teaching salary. And after 10 years in the classroom in North Carolina, that looked like about $32,000. In fact, when I met with Jay the very first time and was going to be joining the team, he wrote the number 50,000 on a piece of paper and he slid it to me and said, "What if you make this in your first year?" And I laughed at him. And he said, "What's funny about that?" And I said, "Well, when you make $30,000 a year, you don't know what 50,000 looks like." And so my goal initially was to do $32,000 in my first year, and my first year looked like 50. And then it's grown over time. And last year was my best year. I made just over $200,000.
Wow. Okay. Great job, girlfriend. Now, did you grow up in Charlotte?
I didn't. I grew up in a small town about 2 hours from here. But my husband and I have been in Charlotte for 16 years. He works for the hospital system here. And so we kind of followed his career around. And because I was a teacher, it was pretty flexible for me to go wherever he was. But we've called actually a suburb of Charlotte. It's called Concord. We've called it home for 16 years now.
Got it. And so were you always full-time, or did you start part-time, kind of lay the groundwork for that?
So I jumped in with both feet. I really believe that for me to do something well, I have to be all in. I don't do well dividing time in between places. I'm kind of a focused person. So I've been full-time since the beginning. I committed to being in the office every day in my first year. I did an open house every Saturday, except for Mother's Day and Thanksgiving that year. And just looked at those first years in business because mainly of what I'd seen my dad do. When you're self-employed, you have to earn the right for flexibility. Like everybody gets into this because they want to have all the time in the world, right? But you have to add discipline around that. And so for me, I got in the office, I committed about 50 or 60 hours a week in those first couple of years. And now I've built a business that kind of just looks like living my life and enjoying my people and getting to call it work at the same time.
What were you doing those first few years? Like, what did that look like? Can you go back that far?
Sure. So whenever I joined the team, the commitment that I made at the time was that I would arrive on my first day with a list of 125 people who I knew and who knew me. And on my way into the office, I had 124 people on that lovely Excel spreadsheet and was in a total panic. And my husband called and said the lawn service guy was going to come and mow the grass that day. And I was like, "Dude, I don't know him real well. I got his name. Send me his email address and his phone number so that I can fill up the sheet." So I did that and I sat down in the office and I said, "Here's my list." And I thought I had done something great. And Jay looked at me and he said, "Now call them." And I went, "What?" He said, "Call your people." What do I say? Well, just check in on them. So call your people. So I called the list of 125 and I spoke to about 70% of them. Now what do I do? Now call the ones back that you didn't talk to. Okay. Now write a note to everyone that you spoke to on the phone. What? Now go see all those people. And for 3 months, that list of 125 people got touched about 6 times in my first year in business. I had to get uncomfortable with having conversations with people I was really comfortable with, which is a strange thing in real estate because everyone's like, "I don't want to be salesy with my people." But I don't have a problem in the world asking them about their business and their jobs and how their lives are going. And so if you just have conversations with people, it gets pretty easy for the conversation to come back to what you're doing in your world. And that is an open door to share with them about real estate.
I love that. Were you, did you originally start with Jay White's team or did you make any changes in between?
I went straight into the team. Right out of real estate school, I actually met Jay's dad early on while I was still a real estate student. And he's, y'all, the quintessential Southern gentleman, like come in hospitality in spades. And he welcomed our study group into the Keller Williams office in Valentine. we met there, we got to know him. And so whenever Jay came to me and said, hey, I think you might be a good fit for the team, would you be interested? It really felt like a natural progression. And that teacher mentality of understanding your best resource is the person next door. You understand how important it is to partner yourself with the right people, with people who are driven and people who encourage you and people who push you to do things that are a little uncomfortable, but highly beneficial, you know?
So it's been 7 years now.
7 years.
Okay, well, congrats on that. Lasts longer than a lot of marriages, and this is a business partnership. So
Yeah.
great job. So okay, well then thinking back on it, what's been your philosophy between business and personal? Because oftentimes we do want to leave that separate. What's been your philosophy in building your business?
So I made the comment earlier that I'm an all-in kind of person. I don't do well with categories, right? So I just decided that I couldn't have a sphere-based business if I wanted there to be a dividing line between work and my life. I needed to figure out how to make those two come together. So I've never been a person who had 2 separate Facebook pages, or I mean, that's how old I am, Facebook, but I don't even have 2 separate Instagrams, right? I have everything as one. If I am reaching out to my people, I want them to know me as an individual. I want them to kind of feel like they're welcome at my house and that they know my kids, because I want them to share their family stories with me, because that's how we build relationships and make connections with people. So from the beginning, I didn't do a line between the two. I'm kind of an open book. My goal for every client that I meet with is if we don't know each other when we get started, we're going to finish this as friends. And I want to be a resource and a constant in your world. And that matters to me. So that's kind of been my philosophy. Be all in on the things that matter with the people who matter.
Okay, so no lines, like you are one and the same.
Yes. In fact, we joined Place just August. And in doing that, everybody has the Rivety numbers, right? And so I have the Rivety number and I would use that to call people. And then they would say, wait, did you change your cell number? And I even still tell people, no, that's my office number. You have my direct number. And whenever a client goes from being a lead to someone who I've had an appointment with and we've done a consultation and they become a client, the next thing they get is my personal cell phone number. I want them to have that in case they need it. I want them to feel like they are invited into who we are as a team. And I want them to feel like they're invited into my world.
I love that kind of like little, like it, like all of a sudden I got the warm and fuzzies. And when you're like, now you get my personal number because you're a client,
Yeah.
as opposed to you are a prospect in my database. Right on. Okay. So with summer coming up, the reason I was really excited about this conversation is all of us, our kids are getting out of school. We're doing some vacations. We have a little bit more time at home, just by nature of the season, right? And there's going to be neighbors out, and we're taking walks and doing all those things. And so, what better conversation to have than voice to voice and face to face? So, what networking groups are you part of, or community groups are you involved in, to have built an 85% repeat referral business? What does that look like for you? Give us some ideas.
So I have a core group of people that I went to college with. We went to Appalachian State in Boone, and that was one of my first groups of people. And so out of that, several of them are involved in higher education. So I got connected with the UNC Charlotte system. And so I have lots of clients in that pool. I stay connected there. My son is a high school athlete. He's actually graduating in 7 days, but we're really not talking about it yet because I can't handle it. And in the process of that, I found that I was spending all of my time on the field or at the school. I'm that mom that's there with the Gatorades and the pom-poms and school spirit out the wazoo. And so I joined the booster club at our school, and I'm involved with PTO there. I find if you have kids, y'all, they're marketing geniuses, right? Your kids are your key to the kingdom if you have little people. Outside of that, I got involved in an organization here in town called the Junior Charity League. It's just a group of business and professional women who seek to take care of kids in need in our school system. And so I got engaged with that. And then, gosh, just getting out and knowing your neighbors, stopping to speak with people whenever they pass by. It's amazing what happens if you just say hello to someone when you pass them. You get to know people really well. The world gets tiny fast if you talk to people.
I love that. I hope somebody wrote that down. The world does get tiny very fast when you talk to people. So it sounds like you have like some core groups, and I would challenge everybody on our call, right? You may not be a mom. You might be doing something different. Like, right, like Christina like leaned into who she was, and that's the message. Lean into who you are, and find where those groups are in your community, in your world, that you can foster those relationships, because that's really what you're doing, right? Fostering
Right.
relationships.
It's funny. There's a guy on our team and he's a car guy, like souped up Mazdas. I don't understand. I don't know a whole lot about it, but he loves cars and he goes to car shows, and those have become his people. There's an agent on our team who is really into bourbon. And so he's got a little bourbon group, and they meet and they discuss bourbon, and real estate comes up in the conversations. We've got a couple of really young agents who are networking with other young professionals, and they've created networking groups that point business to one another. I think a lot of times people say networking and they think it's like an appointment on my calendar for Tuesday at 1 o'clock lunch, right? They think it's that. For me, networking is just how do you integrate your life and your work together organically, and then put systems around it to make it strong.
Okay, I love that. So I guess then, what does like a month or a few months look like in your world? Like, how do you integrate all that? Like, what kind of events are you doing, or what events are you going to, or what does it tangibly look like to have it as a business plan, as opposed to networking is part of my business, right? Which we hear a lot of.
Yeah.
What does it successfully look like for you?
So in October of every year, I do my business planning for the year following. And I sit down and I think about what that next year is going to hold. And I'm very big on reverse engineering. So I got the big printed out calendar that I could put on the wall. And I put down key events that I knew in my world that were coming up. And then I looked at what events I could do each month that would be easy, low expense or no expense, that could allow me to touch my client base. And so we planned an event every month for the year. And some of the events are big events and some of them are very small. But honestly, my budget per month, and I pay this myself, is $300 a month. And I sometimes don't spend that amount, but I've allowed myself $300 a month to do this. So every month it involves, like right now we're looking at what we're doing in July. In July, I get a partnership with the high school football team. They're doing their summer workouts. I'm a football mom. They love me. I love them. So the boys are going to come after a practice in their jerseys, and we are going to go to 4 neighborhoods that feed into our local high school. And we're going to put out an American flag at every mailbox in the neighborhood. Those American flags were less than $1 a piece. But we're going to put those out, and then the school is marketing it along with me as look at what our football players are doing in the community. And I'm marketing it as look at our community football players, and it's co-branded between me and the high school. And everyone in the community is going to get a property evaluation on QR code on the flyer that gets put at their mailbox or with their flag. That just says Happy Independence Day from Christina Brown, the J White Group, and West Cabarrus High School. Like, that's what July looks like, but it involves intentionality and on the front end. And then we have to have planned strategies on the back end to follow up with all the people who look for those privet evaluations and that kind of thing. Gosh, I wrote my list down because, you need those sometimes. In August, I'm doing a back to school kickoff. So I'll do breakfast at a couple of schools on the very first day of school. That gets me into the school. It gets me the email addresses for all the teachers. It lets me face-to-face with each of the teachers in the school and see what their needs and their goals are for the year. Y'all, sometimes that's a conversation where someone says, hey, yeah, what I have as a big classroom need is I need magic markers for my classroom. And then I can go into my database of people and go, hey guys, this is a needs list for our local high school. Who can meet these needs? And make those connections, and then show back up at the school with a business card stuck on the thing that my clients sent. And then I write my clients a thank you note for serving our community. It's putting yourself in a position of being a connector of people. In September, I'll do like a last minute pop-up. So like on a Tuesday, I'll invite my people in a geographical area to a local bar for apps and drinks. Everybody gets 2 drinks. and I buy apps based on who shows up. So I call the local tavern and say, hey, I've got a group of people. It may be 10 people, it may be 30 people, and we'll order apps as they come. But I invite on Tuesday, knowing that many people can't clear their calendar for Thursday. We do it from 5 to 7 on Thursday evening. You get credit for the ask and the invitation. So you invite everybody, and then you take pictures at the event, and then you post those on social media, and then you thank everyone for coming. And then the next touch is we hate that you missed it, and we hope you can be there for the next time. My goal is that each event that I do allows me to touch my clients 6 times. And I'm doing those once a month.
It sounds like a lot of creativity and a lot of systems. Like you are marrying your creativity with systems. It's not one or the other. It's a combination. It's very integrated.
Right. And I will tell you that's really hard because I am into hospitality and entertaining people and throwing parties. Like that's my nature. I love that kind of thing. And so for me to add the systems and discipline around it has been my biggest challenge. I think a lot of people a lot of times in real estate, we swing to the creative, right? We swing to what's natural and what's easy, and we don't add the discipline around it that makes it structured and makes it a business plan. Guys, you can be a party planner, but that doesn't make you a good realtor or connector of people. And so figuring out how to take those two things and putting them together is the ticket. And some of these events are like completely no cost. Like in July, I will invite friend groups over to my house. We have a pool. So all of the clients who go to UNCC, who work at the local college, I'll invite them to bring their kids over to my house on a Saturday afternoon to play in the pool. And I invite the whole pack of people from that area, right? From that network per se. There'll be like 5 or 6 families here in my pool in the backyard. And it looks like icy pops out of the freezer and plenty of towels and sunscreen. And we just hang out and play. And guys, every time I do one of those events, what ends up happening afterwards is I get 2 to 3 referrals within the next 2 months from each event.
Would you say that you spend a lot of time planning on the back end? Or would you say that's a couple hours a week? Like what kind of time devotion are you giving to planning and to like getting ready for something, like anything?
So October, November, I don't know if this is how it is in Texas. In Charlotte, agents leave the office for Halloween and they come back at Valentine's Day. Like they think that there's no real estate that happens in the winter, right? And so people think that that's a really small time. For us, December's a great month. But when the things slow down, I spend time planning. I use those lulls to plan. And every time I do an event, I plus delta it afterward. So I do what worked well and what didn't, and I stick it in the file. And when I'm doing my planning for the next year, I pull it out and go, this is what we need to do different. It's almost like having a playbook for each of the events. I would say I probably put in personally 3 hours per event in the planning part of it. I have an assistant who is amazing at MailChimp. Like I give her the content and she makes the flyer and she sends it out. Amber is central to my business at this point. As my goals are growing and my time becomes more valuable, you leverage those things out to people.
When did you add Amber?
So Amber was a showing partner for me last year. Okay. And she's a mom of 3 kids. And she was like, I want to do a little bit more than just being a showing partner. And I'd like to do some admin work if you have that available. And I went, well, this is just kind of perfect. And so she is actually in a lot of the same circles that I'm in. So we doubled down on both of our networks and partnering those together. And she works 3 to 6 hours a week based on projects. It's not a steady commitment. It's 3 to 6 hours a week project based.
I love that. I love that. Awesome. So you are building a business within the business, which I think
Correct.
is really, really awesome. We'll get to that. Any advice that you would give to somebody that wants to start networking or a community group or anything like that? What's your advice on that? If somebody's hearing you and they're like, well, I don't have kids, what would be your advice?
So you go somewhere, you do something, right? You may be someone who goes to the gym. You may be someone who plays a sport. You may be into online gaming. You have community around you. You just have to figure out how to engage that community. And I think the biggest challenge that people have as new agents is they go, I don't want to cross the line and call my people and go, hey, this is a business call. But what I think is a lot of times you can make that connection let me kind of phrase this differently. I can call you, Adelina, and go, hey, Adelina, how's everything going in your world? How are the kids? Da, da, da. And we can have a total conversation about life. And then that can lead to real estate. Or I can call you and go, hey, Adelina, real quick, I'm on a business call. This is completely business. Can I ask you a question? And I think my friends have responded, and my sphere has responded really well to that, because there is the genuineness of, I am interested in what's going on in their world, and compound that with, it's okay for me to call and say, hey, this is a business call. I think if you're just starting and you're looking for networking, you've got to look at the things that are automatically things that you're good at or people that you want to be with. Because if this does not come from sincerity or a place of authenticity, it's gonna get seen through very quickly. I think for me, it just made sense to marry the two parts of my world and then expand it. And what's happened as a result of that is I've now got groups of people that I'm able to connect from different areas. So, hey, all of you guys are into sports. Let's all get together at the sports page. And then I can connect people in my network from different pods, right? From different little spheres, I can connect them together.
Sounds like authenticity is the key to what you're doing.
I think so. I think it has to be. I'm pulling back the veil on who I am. And if that's not consistent, and if people don't see that my goal is to help and connect, then this all falls apart, you know?
How do you, I know you've talked about like your budget is, you know, about $300 a month. And you're paying that, like that's been kind of your part of your business, personal business plan.
Right.
How do you do this and not spend a lot of money, right? Like, because oftentimes people think of events and they think of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And like, dare I say, that's why I'm on a team. So why wouldn't the team spend thousands of dollars on events? What's your philosophy on it?
Well, and I will say our team does contribute to a couple of things that I do in the course of the year. Because of my level of production, that's been a part of my plan with the team. But I think you can do a ton for free. How do you do it without costing a lot of money? So we have a home inspector that we use a lot. We refer him to almost everybody that needs to have a home inspection. We have a short list of vendors, and I'll call him up and say, hey, I'm doing a meetup at Afton Tavern on Friday night, and I'm inviting about 25 people. Don't know how many people are coming. I was wondering if you'd like to come to the event. Would you like to underwrite that event? Like, absolutely, I'm in. My daughter has a friend who is an aspiring photographer, and she's taking pictures of 19-year-olds, which is really great for her Instagram, but you're not going to make money taking pictures of 19-year-olds. You need access to like mamas with babies or people getting married to like get to the money of that. And so I called Courtney and said, hey, can I pay you $100 for 4 hours of you taking pictures in the park of my clients? And it was a zero-based event. So not zero-based, $100. Courtney came and worked for $100. I gave her access to everyone who signed up for a time slot so that she could market to them. And then she took pictures, gave 2 edited images to all of my clients. I set up a picnic table and a tent and said, Courtney's sitting back right back there. Y'all go back there and visit with her. So I kept that super inexpensive. And then partnering with businesses. A lot of times local businesses want to have exposure, and they don't have a huge client base, and they don't have a ton of credibility. But if my friend Lori, who has a cake shop, says, hey, you could host an event here, if you can bring the people in, we can do this event. And she'll sell me her product super cheap, but then she opens up her case to everyone who comes in to buy other baked goods. And then Lori is able to build business. So the next time I call and go, hey, I want to host a client event, she's like, don't worry about paying me, just get your people here. And so it gets them exposure. It's looking at ways to connect to different groups of people. And guys, sometimes this can be as simple as like a meetup in the park. Like, hey, let's meet at this event or this concert that we're getting ready to go to. I'm going to have a tent at the concert for Jimmy Buffett. If you want to swing by and say hi, come on. And then that turns into a networking event. It's funny, I mentioned my number 125, like the landscaper guy. I got to the end of the list and he was the last one. Over time, he has ended up being one of my biggest business creators and referral people. Out of his connections, I have done about 22 deals in the last 7 years. He's introduced me to people who have just grown exponentially, and he doesn't come to any of the events. He's not involved in any of those things. He's completely not interested. But for him, it looks like me doing something that matters to him. And so in the summer, I'll show up with a cooler full of wet towels and drinks, and I'll find out where his crew is working, and I'll just drop off Gatorade. And we have nabs in North Carolina. It's like the Lance crackers that are cheese with peanut butter on the inside. It has to be that kind. It doesn't count if it's not. And so I take those and some Gatorades, and I show up where his crew is, and just love on his people. You can do this super inexpensively. What it has looked like for me is being the person that I was before and being able to add business to the conversation so that I can do what I would naturally do on steroids, right? It just benefits it. It builds it up.
What's your breakdown of buyers and sellers? Do you know, like last year?
Oh, I don't know. I was more listings last year than sellers or
Okay.
buyers. So that was my first year that listings outweighed. I would say I was probably 60-40 last year.
That's good. That's nice. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Take it. Well, so then how do you feel not weird? Because that's the number one thing. I mean, if I'm sitting in my office and I sit in between like top agents and brand new agents, right? And so what I hear often is, I have to make my calls to my first 200 people, and it just sounds, because you haven't talked to them in like probably ages or ever, or
Right.
you added them because like you needed somebody to put on the list, right? How do you make it not weird to talk about to that initial call, and then as you're like growing your business, you're checking in again, like whatever 3 months later? Like, how do you make, like, what philosophy or what advice would you give us to not make it weird?
Okay, so I'm going to say that if you're like under 35, it's going to be weird. You're going to call your people on the telephone and they're going to think you're dying because you text all the time. Like if you only text your people, they're going to freak out when you call. So I've even had agents on our team call and go, hey, just checking in. Everything's fine. Give me a ring when you get a second, right? But I think it's not weird if you just come from a place of contribution. We use the Ford method a lot on our team. So I just call people and ask them about the family and their occupation, their relationships, and their dreams. Now, I'm not asking them like, what did you dream of last night? But what it looks like is more, hey, how are the kids? How's the family doing? We haven't seen each other in a while. What's going on in your world? And then it jumps into, how's work? Great. Y'all got any fun plans in the next little while? And they tell me those kind of things. So what's coming up on the horizon for y'all? And here's what happens. If I say, hey, Adelina, how are you doing? You're going to say, great, how are you? And that reciprocity of the conversation is that scripting that we do innately happens. And they ask me what's going on in my world.
Yeah. What's your response, by the way? Like, what's a proper response?
Like, what's going on in your world? How's everything with
Yeah.
you?
So Christina, how's everything? Everything's great with me. How's it going with you, Christina?
Oh my gosh,
As a
everything
real
is
estate agent, what would you
Yeah.
say?
So as Christina, I would say, oh, everything is incredible. We are up to our neck in high school graduation stuff, which is tremendous fun. And we're not missing a moment of all that. And work is better than I deserve. And they go, oh, tell me about that. Oh my gosh, well, I'm working with some incredible clients and business is growing and our team is growing. And it's just so good to be in a healthy place where everyone is taking care of each other and we get to serve our clients great. By the way, are you guys still thinking about making a move after the kids graduate? Like, that's what that conversation looks like. The phrase, who do you know who's thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, is the most artificial and insincere statement that I think realtors make on a daily basis. Right?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on in your world? And then guys, then what you do is you take really great notes on those conversations. So when you call them back in 3 months and they've told you, when I talk to you today, Adelina, and you say that your kids are getting ready to go from elementary to middle school, and I talk to you in September, I'm going to ask how middle school's going for your middle, right? Like, how's your little school going? How's middle school going? How was this trip to Glacier Springs? Like, whatever that looks like, I'm able to reference our previous conversations with them. It only is awkward if you think it's awkward. And I find that agents a lot of times are getting ready to get ready and they have to get out of their own head. In reality, if I had a friend who owned a painting business or a hair salon or any of those things, and they reached out to me to help them with their business. I mean, y'all, this is kind of directed to the girls. If your friend has a Pampered Chef or 31 or Mary Kay business, they don't think twice about inviting you to their things, and you don't feel like it's an ugly ask. But I think when we're the ones that are going into that territory for the first time, we think that it has to be business. And if it just can be you checking in with a friend, that's great. If you've not talked to them for a while, just say, hey, I'm reaching out. I've kind of been a sucky friend here lately, and we've not talked, and I apologize for that. And I got a little bit of time on my hands, and I want to focus on people who really matter in my world. So I was wondering what you guys have been up to. Y'all, that's a great lead into people to even come from a place of apology. The other thing that's super easy is to come from a place of gratitude, to call someone and say, hey, I've just really been thinking about people who have mattered in my world. And I wanted to thank you for everything that you did with this. I know it may have gone unnoticed, and it may have even been a while since we were at that event or that thing happened, but I wanted to thank you for everything that you do.
These
And
are
it just opens the doors for great conversations.
Reconnection calls are so valuable.
For sure.
I love that. What does consistency look like for you? Because I hear you and you sound very systematic, but I also know you're such a creative. So how have you built consistency in your life? Like, is it number of events per month, or like, how do you build a networking consistency, I guess? What does that look like?
So I've committed to one event a month.
Okay.
I have committed to, I am making 3 of the touches for each of those events.
Okay.
And
What
then
what is that? Like, what do you do for a touch?
It's a personal text message, it's a telephone call, and it's a thank you note.
Okay.
So I write a ton of notes. That's probably where I spend most of my time in the course of a day. Like if I had to break down to individual tasks, me writing notes is really a big part of that. People get excited when they go to the mailbox and they don't see a sales flyer or they don't see a bill. And so if they go there and they have a personal note, those don't get thrown away either. They make their way into the junk drawer or into someone's shoebox or the refrigerator or whatever. And I always make sure I put a business card with that. So I think that's one of the things. The other thing is I have kind of said to the people on our team, look, when you see me get crazy, and they know what that means, like that's when, I don't know, graduation season and things in my kids' world are going on. And I kind of am not in the office as much because I'm doing all the things. I have given the people on my team permission to call me out, to say, hey, Christina, I know you've got a lot going on. Have you gotten your lead gen done for this week? Like what did your lead gen look like for this week? What are your numbers? And to give, I'm going to say, newer agents on our team permission to call me out as being sales director, to say, hey, I've not seen you making any calls. I think that adds a lot of accountability around what we do.
Good job. I love that. How big do you think the runway has to be for somebody to get successful with networking being part of their business plan? Do you think it's like years, or how many years, how many months?
So initially it looks like about 18 months before the people in your world associate you with being a different thing. So if you're a college student who goes into accounting, it takes your world about 18 months to realize you're an accountant now and not a college kid. It took me about 18 months to not be a teacher and to be a realtor. And so that 18-month runway is kind of what we built all of our systems around. What we have found recently is we've grown from about 5 agents this time last year to 16 agents now with Place, which is huge. And incorporating what I'm doing as far as network-based business and teaching our agents how to do that, and partnering it with the systems in place and launch and all those other things, that runway is now shortened for most of our agents to about 6 months.
Okay.
Like when you put the strength of the Place systems around what you're doing, all of a sudden it just changes the conversation completely. So 6 months is about what the runway looks like.
Okay. So if you were breaking this down into a 6-month runway, how do you break that down to a business plan? Like what would that look like for if you were coaching somebody and they said they wanted one of their strategies to be networking, to grow their business? What does a business plan look like? How would you coach them?
So for our agents, we start them off with $1,000 dial day, and they can pick the location. If they can pick a location of people that they already know, that's great. If they can like do in their neighborhood or around their neighborhood, that's a great way to get a good start. But they're going to start with circle prospecting, and they're going to start with being on the dialer and really talking to a lot of strangers. But then you're going to do open houses, and you're going to meet people face to face, and you're going to take great notes from those conversations. So then your follow-up with them becomes less, hey, do you have any questions about 123 Main Street? And more like, hey, sounds like this backyard would be a perfect place for Fido and the kids to play soccer, because we took notes that they like Fido. They have a dog named Fido, and they have kids who play soccer. So you're starting to build that there. And then we do a lot of social evidence on our team. So if I get a listing, all of the agents on our team send it out as my new listing on their social media. If we have a closing, we all have a closing. So on my social media, while 43 of the transactions from last year belong to me, to my sphere, they see it like 150 transactions last year, because they see all the things that are happening. I think so often as agents, we're like, this is mine. And it's not. Like, we share success, and if we can share success with each other, we're building on that team and lending success to one another. And when your sphere starts to see social evidence, that runway gets shorter. So it's got to be commitment to daily activities until your sphere starts producing for you, but using social evidence from circle prospecting and team to feed into that.
So tangibly, are you guys tagging each other? Or
yes.
are you like, what does that tangibly look like? Like, if somebody was using your sale, would they just say, hey, I've got I just closed one? Or would they say, our team just closed one? What would they tangibly say? Do you know?
So whenever we get a listing, everybody has their Brivity URL. And so everyone on our team goes to their own URL, and they pull the listing, and it says Christina.jwhitegroup.com at the top. And they share it on their page, and they say, look at my newest listing. I don't care who got the listing. Let's all do it, because we were all in the trenches together working for the same goal. So I got a new listing, and then it's under contract. Meanwhile, we have one of our admin sends everything out to J White Group, and she tags us in all the things. So any videos, any open house blurbs, any of the fun stuff that looks like business comes from her, and it goes out to our social media. But we have things coming from our own site out to our social media as well. When an agent is doing an open house, they're doing videos from there. So they go in and they're like, look at my new listing. Wouldn't you love to bake in this kitchen or whatever? That kind of tag team of success is what that looks like. It's not mine. And we're pretty clear with all the agents on our team too. Like, you don't own a territory, and you don't own a neighborhood. Our team is there to serve everyone in that community, and we are going to get market share as a team. And so we may have 2 or 3 agents circle prospecting in the same neighborhood over a just listed, just sold, or open house.
Ben would be so proud if he was on this call, because he has long preached the last 7 years that I've been in business with him about the power of the team. And you just succinctly just said it tangibly, how power of a team. Carrie, you have a question. I see your hand.
Well, it's actually not a question. It's more like a comment. And I love what you're saying, because we always talk on the teams about coming from a place of contribution for our clients. But it's also coming from a place of contribution for our team. So I love what you're saying, because in promoting someone else's listing is like a place of contribution for everybody. So I love that. And I really enjoy listening to you.
Thanks, Carrie.
I love that. That's a great share, Carrie. Okay, so as we wrap up, I've got 5 quick fire questions. Have you had any fails? Or has it just been sunshine and rainbows? Like, have you had any challenges? Because it sounds like you've just got this perfect life where everybody just comes to you. What have letdowns looked like for you?
I had a close friend who chose to list their property with someone who had a bigger name in our neighborhood than I did. So that was kind of a hard one to get over, because we had a long relationship there. Fails look like feeling like you're investing a ton and it's not coming back as quickly as you're investing, right? I think it's funny, James Clear, Atomic Habits, he talks about the latent potential, right? This graph that says this is what we expect things are going to look like, and this is what they actually look like. And I think that season of the slow climb, all things happen slowly and then suddenly, but you spend a lot of time investing in this before it starts producing for you. And I think in that season, there's a lot of disappointment, like you're honing your skills, you don't get the listing. But I think by having a network-based business, if people know you and they trust you and they think you're reasonably competent, you have a fighting chance, right? It's funny, the other graphic that Jay and I like to use a lot, and Dick Dillingham showed us this. It basically looks like a bell curve. And in that bell curve, you've got 100% of the people that you know. And when you go into real estate, 10% of the people that you know are automatically going to do business with you. They're going to say, yep, I'm signing up to work with her because I know she's amazing. 10% of the people in that group are never going to do work with you. Their spouse is an agent, their mom's an agent. They just don't do business with friends, whatever. You're never going to get those. So the people you're fighting for in the first few years of building business are the 80%. And one of the things that Jay said that I think is absolutely on point, he's like, those people are not going to jump because they're not into being pioneers, because pioneers get shot, right? They don't want to take a risk on you until they see that you're good. And in that season, until you build a sphere of people who know you and trust you and see you as a competent person in real estate, there's a lot of disappointment there. I had a client that we served very well, and she was a great friend, and I took care of her kids whenever they were little in our church. And we sent out a thing asking for 5-star reviews, and her husband's review was like, I gave 5 stars because 10 wasn't available, and hers was like 3. And I called her and I was like, what happened? Like, why did we get a 3-star review? And she was like, I believe there's always room for improvement. I was like, oh, you just took my average, right? Like my perfect 5-star average to like this one random 3, and she wouldn't change it. And it took me a long time to get over the sour grapes of that, right? Like I kind of pouted about it for a couple of days. Give yourself a bad 5 minutes. Don't let it become a bad 5 days, right? You just have to learn through that.
I love that. What advice would you give to someone who wants to get stronger, either in their face-to-face interaction or their voice-to-voice interaction? What can they do to master that? Like, what would you say to them?
Be a person who asks lots of questions and let the other person talk more than you. I think that's huge. I think you read great books. So,
what would you have?
So Sell with Soul by Jennifer Allen Hagedorn is really good. The guys on our team laugh whenever I tell them it's kind of girly, like it's written with a female spin to it, but the content is great. It just talks about how to dig into your people and how to have conversations without feeling like you're selling your soul, but you're using your soul to sell with them. That's a great one. Dale Carnegie, Make Friends and Influence People is a great book. I am reading Super Connector right now because my pain point is social media and knowing how to do that effectively. And so figuring out how to use my face-to-face belly-to-belly network and enhance it with social media more. So I think those are all good things to do. And I think hanging out with people who are good at this is a way to get better at this. So you look at someone who does what you want to do and you mirror that and you kind of borrow what they're doing until you get your sea legs and you can do it on your own.
Do you have any podcasts that you like?
Oh my gosh, I Win, Make, Give every week. Like I love it. I'm so ready for them to quit replaying the old ones. I need some new ones, guys. So Win, Make, Give. And then the other one, and I listen to this one all the time, it's More for Enjoyment. Annie F. Downs does one, and it's called the That Sounds Fun podcast. She's out of Nashville, and she is one of these people that I think does what I want to do really well. She's a great connector of people across communities and is building this great, it's a community, but it really does feel like you know these individuals and you're invited into this world. And so I listen to a lot of what she does and add those things to my toolkit, right? I add what she's doing to the things that are working for me.
I love that. You've built such an amazing business. What's next for you? Where do you see this going? What do you want it to look like?
So I joke that I want to retire in a moo where my husband's boat costs more than our house. Like that's kind of the ending plan. He wants to fish and I want to sit on the boat and read. Like that's what that looks like for us. In the immediate, we have a kid who's getting ready to go to college and our oldest daughter is getting ready to graduate from nursing school. So our goal is to just be amazing parents to grown kids. We would like to add about 5 more rental properties in the next 5 years. We'd like to do 1 a year for the next 5 years. Our goal is by the time that we are 55, that we would have 15. So we have 2. So we got to get on the ball in 46. The other thing that is on the pipe for us is I am working toward building my own team within the J. White group. I've got me and Amber, and we've got an agent on our team who's been a hand raiser and said, when you start this team, I'm coming with you. So we've got it started, and just growing that over the next couple of years is going to be really exciting. I'm thrilled about all the things that place has brought to our world. And gosh, if I had more opportunities to meet with great people across the country, that would be even better.
I love that. I hope you guys heard her sense of clarity, right? It doesn't mean that she knows the entire staircase, but does she know the next couple steps? Absolutely. And all of us can know the next couple steps. We don't have to have it all figured out. Just the next couple steps, right? Like 15 rental properties by 55, right? Like boom, like, right. That is tangible. That is like you can see it, you can feel it, you can touch it, you can do it, right? Build a team within a team, right? She's gotten her business to 43 closed units. She is now ready to build her business, right? Further than she has today. Especially with being 60% seller based. Like, I mean, that's a real business, right? It's not reactive business, it's very proactive business, right? Networking lead gen lever is a business plan. It's not a wish and a hope and a dream. It's real. So I love that. And we love you, Christina. I love what you stand for. I love that you could be 26, 36, 46, 56, 66, 76 on our team, and you can crush it. And I love, love, love that. Would you put your contact information? I bet there's people who have really connected with you this morning who would like to stay connected. Per Christina's advice, if you want to do this well, surround yourself with people who do it well. And Christina does it well. So she would be my friend. And she would obviously love to help all your North Carolina referrals. She's in the Charlotte area, but I bet you she's got people all over North Carolina that if you ever have a North Carolina need, she's your girl. And I would go to her first.
Charlotte's right on the border, North Carolina and South Carolina. So we're dually licensed too. So if you've got anybody coming to this area, we'd love to help.
I love
and guys, I'd love to get back to Texas. We lived there for a short amount of time several years ago. We lived in the Sherman, McKinney area. And so we'd love to make it back there. So if I ever can come to Texas, I'd love to come see you guys.
We will put you on the list. I like that a lot. Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you, Texas. We will see you next time. We have a great weekend and we will see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all.